It's quite fitting that Spirit Yacht's latest launch, the 111, should be revealed to the public here in Gosport on the south coast of the UK. Why? Because we're at Endeavour Quays, formerly known as Camper & Nicholson's, and while that was famous for many yachts, they were particularly well known for the spectacular J-Class yachts of the 1930s. Shamrock 5, Velsheda, Endeavour 1 and 2, all four of them were built here. So why the connection? Well, because the 111 is the largest slooped rig yacht to have been built in wood in the UK since Shamrock back in 1930. There's another link too. The J-Class were well known for representing the leading edge of design and technology in their day. Just like this boat here. So we've just headed out of Endeavour Quays and we've just slipped out through the narrow entrance to Portsmouth Harbour out into the Solent. And what a fantastic day to come for a sail trial. The sea breeze is built, we've got 10 to 12 knots. It's absolutely gorgeous out here. Now, the first thing that strikes you about this boat is how different it is to a normal boat. And it only really struck me as we started to get moving. Because normally, the audible warning to most of the crew that you're about to leave is turning the diesel engine on. It starts with that familiar beep, and then the dum 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 gives everybody notice we're about to go. Not on this boat. With an electric motor, you press the button, you're off. There's no noise apart from the quiet hum of the electric motor and the prop spinning beneath you. We've only been out about 20 minutes, I suppose, and already I'm beginning to realise how pertinent that comparison with the J-Class really is. Because for anybody who's been able to sail one, it's not a big list, but I'm very proud to be on it, will know that sailing a J-Class often involves more than 20 crew. There's 5 of us aboard this boat, and all I've done so far is to film it. Hoisting the main and unfurling the jib is no more difficult than pressing a couple of buttons on a remote control that's barely any bigger than your iPhone. There's nothing particularly new in that. It's just pretty impressive when you look up at the size of this mainsail. It's a whopper, and no one has yet broken out in a sweat. So where has this project come from?
At the beginning we were talking to the now owner of this yacht about what he wanted, and his concept to start with was a 90-foot-ish yacht for him to sail. He's a young man in his mid-30s. He wanted a yacht that he could use like any other yacht, just a little bit bigger, more comfortable for him to use. So he wanted to cook in the galley. He didn't really want crew on board. He wanted to make the sailing systems really easy for him. But more importantly, it was the aesthetics of the boat. It had to be really beautiful. We made a model of the 90-footer. He came and looked at his model, and it was about this size. He looked at it and says, looks wrong. Can we stretch it and make it longer? And that's how it came to be 111 feet long. And we kept the freeboard exactly the same height as a 90-footer as 111. So if you look at the boat, she's got a very low freeboard. She sits very low in the water. She feels like you're involved in the sailing. So that was hugely important.
helm is yet more surprises, or maybe I shouldn't say surprises. Anybody who's sailed a Spirit yacht will know that one of their characteristics is that they're beautifully balanced and an absolute pleasure to sail. This is no different. What an amazing boat. So light on the helm, so direct and so easy to steer. And it's easy to get lulled into thinking, because there's only 5 of us on board, it's really only taking 3 of us to go through the tacks. It's easy to get lulled into thinking that she's nowhere near as big as 111 foot. But she certainly is. When the sails flog, you're reminded of that. You can feel the load, you can feel the power in this boat. But what a remarkable machine. And yet again, I find myself comparing it to a J-Class. And one of the boats that I'm most proud of having helmed was Endeavour many years ago, one of the J-Class yachts. And I was blown away by that. And it sort of set a standard, in my head anyway, for super yachts. And this is just on a par with that. And it's yet another example of how far things have moved on. This is a boat, as I keep saying, at the scale of a J-Class yacht, sailed by just 5 of us on board. Push button technology, I can just push a button down here to ease the main out if I want to, or just bring it in. There's nothing particularly new in that, but in the context of this boat, this elegant 111-foot cruiser, makes for something really quite special. So what else do you notice about this boat? Well, the things that don't really spring to mind until you start reading down the spec list is how advanced this boat is. For a start, it's got a carbon mast. Again, nothing particularly unusual in that in the super yacht world. She's got composite rigging. It all helps to keep the weight down and keep the righting moment up, which is one of the things that contributes to the performance of this boat, and also helps with the balance and the whole feel. The winches are also something that are quite interesting on this boat. First of all, there's not that many of them. And secondly, they're back-winding winches. And that makes trimming an awful lot easier and indeed a lot safer, particularly with a sail plan of this size. But for all her elegance on the outside, I suspect it's her appearance on the inside that'll be the biggest talking point. Designed by Rhodes Young, the accommodation is based around the shape of an S. With the circular saloon and just 4 sleeping cabins hogging the prime part of the boat, you might think that there's a lot of wasted space. But when the finished product looks like this, surely it's a price worth paying. And anyway, if nothing else, the weight is low down in the middle of the boat, so what's not to like? Okay, that's enough of that. It's time for some machinery.
The yacht does have 2 diesel generators on board. It also has a sewage plant here that treats all the sewage of the yacht, so nothing discharged over the side is nasty. We have also great access to the fuel filters and the water systems, and further forward we have what is called the Vortex from Lumar, which is a hydraulic system that allows us to carry only 25 litres of oil in our tank, rather than what would traditionally be 1,000 litres. And that system works absolutely brilliantly. It spins out the air, it cools the oil and reuses it. So when you come to do an oil change, you only need to take out 25 litres and replace it. And below that is the main 100 kilowatt Torqeedo propulsion motor. It's tiny and very effective. But it wasn't just about propulsion. That actually was the easiest bit for us to solve. The harder bit was looking at the rest of the yacht and working out where it was going to use power and how we could save it. So the air conditioning is a variable speed compressor. That allows us to, at night, use much less power, so the batteries can run the air conditioning for about 10 hours without worrying. So you'd use the generators for an hour before you went to bed, top the batteries up, cool the boat with the air conditioning, and then allow it to run until the morning when you don't want it anymore. We've also looked at how things like hot water work. The way we've got around that is we used a diesel burner, but very precise burning of diesel to take all the heat it makes and put it straight into the hot water. And that way, it only runs for a few minutes, it's warmed the hot water back up. And we've gone through that with all the systems, from refrigeration to lighting. Everything we've done has been designed so it uses the least amount of power on the yacht and allowing the batteries to go further if you have to motor. And I reckon if you were sailing every day for 3-4 hours and regenerating through the propeller, you would need to charge the batteries from the generator every 3 days.
But there are some areas of this boat that I'm sure are going to raise some questions. A lot of it is based around practicality. After all, down below decks there's hardly any handholds. Look at this huge, great, wide open foredeck. It's beautiful, but what kind of a nightmare would that be, trying to get across it when you're going upwind in a big sea with waves breaking across this deck, particularly given how low the freeboard is. There are all kinds of areas of this boat where you could potentially pick holes and say, well, it hasn't got a dedicated chart table and the galley isn't gimbaling and the rest of it. But that's not what this boat's about. And although I've not met him, it sounds like the owner has been crystal clear on this. This is a project in creating something that's beautiful. Beautiful to look at, beautiful to be on, and beautiful to sail. And if that means making some compromises elsewhere, so be it. So given that I started this by comparing it to the J-class boats of the 1930s, and while this isn't a racing boat, it's been designed specifically for cruising with the odd regatta in mind, I just wonder what the owners of those J-class yachts, Sopwith and Lipton, would think about this one. I think they'd be pretty impressed. They were well known for wanting to push at the envelope, push at the boundaries, develop technology. And this boat certainly does that.